Welcome. Today we are introducing Dr. Kelley Lee. Dr. Lee is the program director for the UCI Science Project, which provides research-based educational practices for the next generation science standards. In this mini-series, we discuss her wonderful book on teaching and the importance of teaching climate change in the classroom, and how we at Aerospace can best bring our work on the subject to the classroom, and so much more. In this video, we'll hear a little bit about her background and why she decided to write this book for teachers. Let's hear what she has to say.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to share a little bit more about my work and my book. I grew up in the inner cities of LA, and I went to a low-income Title I school in Los Angeles, and I'm a first-generation college student. My mom is a Vietnam refugee, and she came here during the Vietnam War, and I'm floored by, her courage and her strength. And I definitely feel that my love of science comes from my own mom. She only went on to about third grade in her own country before she had to leave, but she was able to, at the time, secure a job as an electrical technician for Howard Hughes in El Segundo. And then when Howard Hughes was bought over by Boeing, she then started working for Boeing, and now she works for SpaceX, NASA, Boeing, and L3 Communications, you name it. So she's just pretty amazing with all the things that she can do. But again, when I think about my own mom's journey and, her raising 3 kids on her own in LA, she always had 2 jobs in aerospace, and aerospace was right in our backyard in Hawthorne. And for me, it just seemed that there were a lot of challenges and barriers to entering fields such as these, but I feel like my mom is an amazing example of how far people can go when they don't have to face those barriers and challenges, and how much better the industry is when there's a diversity of thinking and problem solving approaches just from individuals that have unique perspectives and backgrounds. And so her work has inspired me to become a science teacher. And so I went back to my neighborhood to teach chemistry, nanoscience, and earth science for about 10 years before I became an instructional coach for Los Angeles, and then an instructional coach for the wider state of California, just supporting Title I to high SES to very rural districts in transitioning to what we call the next generation science standards. And I just had this amazing opportunity to be able to support teachers in the classroom, to activate student agency, so that way they can see science as a tool that they can use to change their own lives and change their own communities, and to open up more opportunities, because for myself, that was definitely the case. The book was written, so this is the new book that came out this past year. It's called Teaching Climate Change for Grades 6 through 12, Empowering Science Teachers to Take on Climate Change through the NGSS. So it's not that we're teaching climate change for the next generation science standards, or what we call the environmental principles and concepts for California. It's that we're leveraging those frameworks to be able to do it well. So that way, again, we can tap into student agency to see what they want to do in their own communities after they've identified issues in their lived realities, to be able to then make tangible changes, right? So the book was written as a guide and through my own personal experiences in supporting teachers across the state, and also through my dissertation at UCLA in just studying what is needed for teachers to succeed. So the book was essentially put together after I was able to collaborate with about 50 nonprofit organizations, because as a science teacher myself, when I was supporting other science teachers, we recognized that we had to teach climate change, but it's not common in our backgrounds to be trained in climate science. So if you're a science teacher Today, it's very likely you didn't take one climate science class, because if you're a biochem or a physics major, you're taking purely classes that fit into your major, even your upper division classes. And then if you didn't take any of those classes because you're not a major, but you tested in, you took the CSETs, you passed, and now you get to teach science, then again, you're not learning about climate science, but you're expected to teach about them. And so what we found is that teachers were not getting support who were already in the field, but then also in my research, I found that teachers at the university level in teacher education programs were also not receiving support in teaching about climate change. When I called universities from public to private that offer teacher credentialing programs, I just wanted to study what it looked like to train a teacher in being able to do this well. And in my conversations with teacher education program directors, they all said the same, which is, this is important. We know we should do it. We know we have to do it, but we currently don't do this. So if you know of such a program, please do share it. And my search led to a dead end when I was trying to support teachers, because there wasn't a program out there for our state that, again, supports our K-12 teachers in taking this on through research-based and evidence-based methods, where we can learn from other states or other countries that have been doing this successfully in the educational realm. And so when I contacted the nonprofit environmental agencies to learn more about how climate change impacts the community, and at the community level, what's been happening and what to do about it, I learned so much. And then those individuals, I'm just so gracious for all of their help and support, were able to network me up to our national directors at NOAA and at NASA. I got to connect to amazing people from Yale, Cornell with PRI. It just blew up into something unexpected in the most awesome way. And all of these individuals were able to support me in putting together a multi-day program for science educators to take this on, again, in not only meaningful ways, but in ways that we know work, because they're supported by research and evidence-based practices. And so from that led to all of this data that I had to use for my own dissertation. And then I used that information to put a book together, because I realized I could only put on so many programs by myself. I was volunteering my time. All these teachers were volunteering their time. And so I thought, I think a book would have a larger reach for those who are just looking for support. Teachers like myself that were stuck in the classroom thinking, I have to teach this, and there's got to be a better way than going through endless Google searches, because there's millions of resources out there. It just gets confusing at some point where you start questioning, what is it that I'm supposed to even teach, and how far is it that I'm supposed to go with the frameworks, and how like the pedagogical approaches, how should I even approach it? Again, if I want to activate student agency rather than just positioning them as passive learners, right? Where they're sitting there and passively receiving information. So how would I do all of these things with the subject of climate change? So essentially, the book allows for readers to use climate change as the vehicle to get through NGSS, but understanding that NGSS is one framework that informs what is happening in the book, but it's not the primary reason for why we should take it on, because at this point, it's a moral imperative that we teach the next generation what they need to know about climate science so that they can take action. Because again, it's so important that we have a diversity of solution-oriented thinkers, and we need as many people thinking about solutions as possible as we think about bending the curve. So essentially, that's just a little bit about myself, my motivations, a little bit about my background, and then how the book came to be.